Join me as I take the challenge to map out your retirement plan starting from day one. Now, early retirement for a lot of people is the ultimate dream. It means you don't have to work that 9 to 5, you're done with your day job, and you can spend your days doing what you truly love. Now, the concept of early retirement with the FIRE movement, everything else we've seen has gained a lot of popularity for really good reason. It gives you the sensibility to really have freedom, flexibility, opportunity to do what you want to, and really pursue your passions without having the burden of the paycheck that most of us have until we're 65, 70, even looking at 69 years of age before you get into retirement. Now, one big misconception that we see is that retirement is only for financially privileged individuals, people who hit the lotto or fall into really a windfall. But the truth is, the goal set is really achieved through careful planning, discipline, and patience. Investing over the long term is really what makes this possibility a reality when it comes to investing. Now, of course, the biggest obstacle for most people is the mindset, thinking we need to work till we're 65, where you don't. If you plan this out properly, starting from day one, you can do this. The thing is, the earlier that you start, the easier this plan is, the more time your money has to grow, has time to compound, the greater chances of you achieving that financial independence and living right back here, this debt-free journey. So another conception we also see is that sacrificing your current lifestyle is required to hit retirement. Now, of course, that doesn't mean you have to cut back on everything. When you think of dining out, when you think of travel, when you think about enjoying your life, being able to sacrifice your current life to achieve your financial future that you want, you can kind of do both, but you have to do it really with a caveat because it's not necessarily true. For a majority of us, it is really the adjustments of our daily habits, becoming very intentional with what we spend money on, how we spend money, and honestly, how we manage money without feeling deprived. When it comes to that daily Starbucks coffee, if that's what you want, absolutely. If you love going on the movies, if you love going to vacation, you know what? For a majority of us, there are a lot of things in life that we love that we don't want to cut out, that we don't want to sacrifice along the way. But how can you work it into your budget? How can you make it logical? And of course, when you get it, is it worth it in the end? That is a question that only you can answer in those comments down below. Now, many of us get caught up with having a perfect plan before we start moving forward. This, of course, one size fit all does not work when it comes to retirement, when it comes to financial education, when it comes to financial counseling. There is no one size fits all solution, especially when it comes to retirement planning. When you work with someone and when you do look at their financial situation, you can take small steps towards a very committed goal. And of course, when you start looking big picture, for a lot of people, they don't actually go out. They don't start looking at financial goals. They don't start planning. They don't start breaking it down because a lot of people, number one, feel overwhelmed with the financial goals. And the second one, they don't know where to begin. That is where this video comes in. Again, really kind of breaking it down. When you think of early retirees and when you think of the ability to really retire early, for starters, it is the financial goals. So where are we going to get and how are you going to get there? So for a lot of people, creating the plan to get there means crunching some numbers, setting a retirement date. This, of course, for most people is just a generic future date. They're not worried about it. They're going to be worried about it when they're 35. Then that turns into 45. Then that turns into 55. And then guess what? Eventually, when they're 65, they might be able to retire or they might start thinking about it, which of course is way too late. Now, of course, not only setting a date, but what is the budget going to look like for a future you? This, of course, can be a little bit more difficult for individuals, but when you start looking at different investment options, dividend paying stocks, which is what we're getting into, looking at real estate, growing your wealth over time, investing in the market, there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. Me personally, the way that I'm doing it is putting it into heavy growth ETFs. With that heavy growth ETF, having it actually snowballing and compounding for a multitude of years, slowly shifting about every 5 to 10 years over into more dividend paying. That is going to be the supplement income that is going to be provided from the dividend paying ETFs and to supplement Social Security when we get into retirement without having to actually go through and kind of rob that nest egg. We want to keep the nest egg intact. Well, taking off, like Dave Ramsey says, you never kill the golden goose, you just take the eggs that it lays. That way you can have that retirement account forever. Now, one of the key strategies is looking at saving a significant portion of your income. For this, especially in the younger years, this is where the 401k comes in. I am a big proponent of the promotion of the 401k plans. When you think of the employee match, you are guaranteed 100% return. So theoretically, if your company is giving you a 5% match, you put in 5%, they put in 5%, you're automatically getting 100% bonus on your earnings and your investing. You have to be very intentional with the spending, cutting back on expenses, or not even really cutting back, but monitoring where they are, making sure that you're living within inside of your means while you're still saving. Finding ways to increase income over time is another really big strategy that you can. If you save aggressively and invest wisely, this is kind of what we're looking at when you think of the FIRE movement, which is financial independent, retire early. FIRE movement looks at 20, 30, 40, even 50% or more of your income going into retirement accounts, being very aggressive if that is a movement you're into. For a majority of people, they cannot make that happen. They cannot commit putting away 50% of their income every single paycheck. But of course, when you think about a sizable nest egg, that is going to help you within the long run. If that is a strategy you want to, you can absolutely do. For a majority of us, putting away 15%, honestly, it seems like a magical number. It seems like a really big number to look at, but being aggressive and really setting it at that 15% makes a big difference. So if you think big picture, let's say you're 22, 25, you start out on your career, you set it at 15%. Next year, you get a 3% raise, you get a 5% raise, you get a 3% raise. All of those raises in the future, you're going to be able to keep in their entirety because that retirement account is already set at 15%. You move into another job, you get a promotion, you get a raise, you get another promotion. When your income steadily increases, you're keeping this locked in and honed in on that 15% that is going into those 401k plans, because that is where the retirement is going to come from. And you'll start seeing, once you start hitting 100K, the snowball really starts taking effect. 150, 200, 250, then it's at $500,000, up to $1 million plus when you start getting into retirement, or even closer to retirement when you feel comfortable, when you're ready to pull the trigger and no longer have that 9-to-5 job. Another strategy is rethinking your lifestyle and living below your means. This, for a majority of Americans, seems like it's almost impossible with what we're paying out nowadays, but this might mean downsizing to a smaller house, might mean selling down to a cheaper car, using public transportation if it's available, looking for free or low-cost hobbies that you can enjoy in your free time, and really budgeting to simplify your life. It becomes incredibly complex when you think of technology, when you think of phones, when you think of cameras, and when you think of subscription services. That is one of my biggest pet peeves. When you start looking at all of the apps that you have, subscription services, gym memberships, when you have car washes, everything is just $7, $9, $20, $30. Everybody is just kind of nickel and diming themselves with the ability to have all of these subscription services, and they get super expensive. So there's a point where we can save money, we can reduce our expenses, we can accelerate the journey, really moving into retirement, especially getting into early retirement. Now, one of my favorite retirement stories is a gentleman that retired about mid-30s, living on an incredibly frugal lifestyle. So when you think of some YouTubers that I've seen, when you think of some individuals, they have retired very early, utilizing that FIRE movement like we talked about earlier, living in a smaller apartment, cooking their meals at home, avoiding buying anything that wasn't absolutely necessary, and ultimately they reduced their expenses to almost nothing, meaning that they got to the point where they could live off their investments, they could do whatever they wanted to, and essentially what they're doing is they're buying back time. Think about the time when you're working 9 to 5 and the amount they're saying, let's say you make $25 an hour. That is the value they are placing on your time. And this was the absolute game changer for me, is when you start looking at it that way. What is your time worth? Is your time worth $25 an hour? Are there things in your life that you can essentially offload? You could outsource. You could do anything with to essentially save that $25 an hour. How could you make it not only increasing your income, but how could you reduce your expenses in the same way? But it does really show what is possible when you start thinking of strategies. And when you think of day one, it is about starting that 401k and start retirement, and also might require some sacrifices to really stay committed to the goals. Now, me as a financial counselor, I see a lot of individuals for financial counseling. Most people have zero plan. There is nothing in place. There are no financial goals. There is nothing hard stuck put in place to say, I want to retire at 55, I want to retire at 60, I want to have, $1.5 million in investment account. I'm going to live off the dividends. It's going to produce this much money for me. People don't break it down that far yet when it comes to retirement, and they don't understand why they can't retire because they carry too much debt, because they don't have enough income, because they didn't save properly during the years when they really should have. Now remember, the key to early retirement is starting early, taking action today. That is the thing you can do right now. Go ahead, get that employer match, start that 401k. It is not about waiting until you have a perfect plan in place or you know exactly that you're making more money. This is again where some of the baby steps, like Dave Ramsey, when you start eliminating debt, for some people could be forever, meaning they never start the retirement accounts, never start the 401k plans, and ultimately they are just kind of stuck. But making small, little, really educated steps towards your goal, towards being consistent and also staying committed to the retirement process. So thank you guys for watching the video. I'd love to hear your thoughts about early retirement in the comments below. If you're interested in learning about investment strategies, everything we do financially on this channel, check out some of the other videos. Also subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you in the next video.